When you begin to study it and you begin to learn it, as a mother or a father, you begin to understand it. Mm-hmm. And it's really, really important. Okay, Corie.
All right. So, when we're looking at Jacob and Esau wrestling over this inheritance, we realize really quickly that our modern Western culture is fundamentally different than the culture we see represented in Genesis. We're separated by time, by distance, by custom, and structure, right? In the modern West, we've endowed our governments or states with considerable responsibility, and as such, the power to enact those responsibilities on our behalf. Our governments regulate, aid, and protect us. At least that's the idea. But biblical Israel was a part of the ancient Near East, whose societal structure was instead based around the family. It was tribal and patriarchal. This means the responsibility for the economic, legal, and physical security of the family was entrusted to the oldest male member of each family. He regulated, aided, and protected. Now, extended families lived together in order to survive. They would grow their own food in crops and animals. They shared the responsibilities of harvest, things like grinding grain, making clothing, all the daily necessities of life. Now, later on in Israel, it's believed that multiple individual family homes for a couple and their children would be built around a central courtyard, which enabled up to 30 close relatives, consisting of a patriarch and matriarch, their children and spouses, and their children, to live and work together. When the family grew too large, it would split and become two family units, which we even see happen in Genesis, right? When Lot splits from Abraham. So this arrangement, as well as the physical family itself, was referred to as the father's house, reflecting that responsibility given to and authority expected from that oldest male member of the house, that father. Now, this makes sense of the custom of the firstborn inheritance, which is what we see Jacob and Esau fighting over. The firstborn son of a father would one day become the patriarch himself, responsible in every way for the survival and morality of his other family members. This is why the firstborn was given a double inheritance. This practice prepared the son with the physical resources he would need to care for the family. Now, this societal structure also makes sense of why people were identified as the son of their father, as your legal, moral, and social standing depended on him, and he was responsible for your actions, whether good or bad. He had an obligation to take care of your needs, to protect you, and to spend family resources to get you out of trouble if you needed it. Now, male members of a household would always stay with the family while women would switch allegiances. When they married, they would integrate into their husband's family, becoming a member of his father's house, and therefore her societal and physical protection and moral accountability would be transferred to that patriarch. Now, this system worked well for family units, but it did leave some members of society really vulnerable, mainly foreigners, widows, orphans, and divorced women. For women whose husbands divorced them, they would be expected to return to their father's family or whoever was currently its patriarch. And then the bride price that her ex-husband had paid to her father or brother when they got married would then hypothetically have made up for her financial needs. Foreigners, widows, and orphans, though, were particularly vulnerable. Without a larger safety net of family, they could be left without a means of provision and almost no hope of acquiring provision in the future. Now, these vulnerabilities explain the custom of levirate marriage or brother marriage that we also see represented in the Bible. So if a woman was widowed without having a child, but was still of childbearing age, her dead husband's brother would take her into his household, so she would have immediate provision, and he would have a son with her that would bear his dead brother's name. This ensured that that woman would also have future provision as the child would inherit their legal father's estate. It also explains the Bible's legislation in the Mosaic Law that's meant to protect the foreigner, widow, and orphan. Because without an overseeing state to protect them, they were the most vulnerable of society. How amazing is it then that God is actually identified as their protector in the scripture? And It's also worth noting that just because the Bible shows God working in this type of society does not mean that it's endorsing this society specifically. We're not expected to adopt a patriarchal system for our own. God's added legislation of the system in the law of Moses should be seen as God limiting this structure. He added his morality to an already existing system. In fact, God directly contradicting the patriarchal system's expectation is often seen in the Old Testament. For example, God routinely chooses and elevates a younger born son over the firstborn. Think Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, Ephraim, and even David. All of these were those who should not have become leaders within the patriarchal societal structure, and yet we're told that God sees the heart of man, while man only looks at the outside. And he, in these cases and more, he forced this patriarchal society to think and operate outside of its structure. God is not endorsing the structure, but working despite the structure, just as he can do for each one of us today.
I think that's so important, Corie. He's working to apply his morality or his thinking about humankind into that. So many people today just take, the libertarians take the idea, the Democrats, the Republicans, the liberals, the conservatives, and they apply these ideas and say they're from the Bible. But hold on a minute. What is God doing? God is so much bigger than politics. God is so much
bigger
higher,
than our systems.
Bigger than our systems.
He's not limited by our systems.
He is not. And
we are, but he's not.
Exactly. We need to focus on God. That's very important.
Thank you so much for watching. We want to keep producing high-quality biblical content, but we can't do it without your support. If you feel called to support us, please click the link in the description under Donate. Your support really means a lot to us.